What's up, guys, and welcome back to another video here on B-Males Wrestling. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys a list of both male and female superstars that I think have a great chance to win this year's Royal Rumble. Before we get into the video, if you guys are not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. And don't forget to leave a like down below. Alright guys, let's get into the video. Let's start off with the Women's Royal Rumble, where I have 4 people that I think have a great chance to win it. And I'm going to start off with Jade Cargill. I think Jade Cargill has a great chance to win this year's Royal Rumble because WWE clearly sees a lot in her. They've been giving her a pretty solid push, giving her a singles win at WrestleMania over Naomi, just a lot of wins in general, a win at Evolution, the second ever all-women's PLE, right, winning Queen of the Ring, going on to face off against Tiffany Stratton, the women's champion at SummerSlam. I know she lost that match, but still, just being in a championship match at SummerSlam is huge. Obviously, she's the 2-time tag team champion with Bianca Belair, who's one of the greatest of all time in the women's division. So yeah, they've obviously, done a lot with Jade Cargill since she's debuted in WWE at the Royal Rumble back in 2024. I could definitely see this happening because I think that she is going to be a future women's world champion, whether that's sooner rather than later. I'm not sure. I could definitely see a world where we have Bianca Belair as the women's world champion, or maybe it's still Naomi, and Jade wins the Rumble, and we get Jade versus Bianca at WrestleMania, or we get Jade versus Bianca versus Naomi at WrestleMania for the women's world championship, because I do think that Naomi will lose to Bianca. I know that right now Naomi's health is in the air. I don't know if she's going to have to vacate the title. There's a lot of rumors going around, so I'm not too sure what's going to happen with her. This video is obviously coming out before we get any confirmation on that. But if Naomi stays healthy and she's keeps the championship, I think it could lead to a big 3 triple threat WrestleMania. Or like I said, Jade versus Bianca, because that is a dream match that everyone has wanted since Jade did come to WWE, and obviously all the history there with them being tag partners and Naomi and whatnot. So yeah, I could see a world where Jade wins. But this, in my opinion, is the only match that is possible. If she wins the Royal Rumble, I obviously don't want to see like her versus Tiffany again. I don't know if Tiffany's going to lose the title before WrestleMania, but I just think that the only way I would like to see her win this year's Royal Rumble is if Bianca Belair is the champion. The next person that I think has a great chance to win this year's Women's Royal Rumble is Stephanie Vaquer. I love Stephanie Vaquer. She was super great in NXT. Her time there being a double champion. Obviously, since she's got on the main roster, she's done a lot, right? Being involved in big-time matches with big-time superstars like Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, which I'm going to get to. Obviously, we also know that she won that Battle Royal at Evolution, getting herself a world title opportunity at Clash in Paris versus Naomi. Obviously, like I just said before, I don't know what's going to happen with Naomi, if she's going to be fine for Clash in Paris or if she's going to have to vacate that title. I hope she doesn't have to vacate that title, but if she does, I could see a world where they give it to like an Io Sky or a Rhea Ripley. That sucks for me personally because I did want to see Naomi go on a little run and eventually run into Bianca Belair. But there is a world where they give it back to Rhea or Io Sky. I don't think that Stephanie Vaquer would win the Women's World Championship just like that. I don't think that she was going to beat Naomi in the first place. I just think it was a good opportunity to showcase her and her abilities, especially in front of that crazy France crowd. But like I said, with Naomi's health in the air, with Rhea Ripley and Io Sky being on Monday Night Raw, I feel like one of them could win the championship and maybe hold it to Mania. And then obviously, what does that give you? Stephanie Vaquer winning the Royal Rumble, you can get a Stephanie versus Io, which is obviously a dream match that we've seen twice, but it's got interrupted twice, so we haven't got a clear, winner between Stephanie and Io. And then obviously Stephanie and Rhea, that's another dream match that everybody is waiting for. That's a WrestleMania match. There's a world where they do another triple threat like they did at this year's WrestleMania. Instead, they do it with Rhea, Io, and Stephanie, which I think a lot of people would like as well. So I think there's a lot of things that they could do if Stephanie won the Royal Rumble. And like I said, she's super over with the audience, and she is, one of the fresh new superstars to the main roster that has never won a Royal Rumble. Obviously, ever since the Rumbles got introduced for the women, I like to see, new women winning the Rumble. That's why I wanted Io Sky to win this year's Royal Rumble, or last year's, I should say, instead of Charlotte Flair, because I just didn't feel like she needed that, and it was also her second Rumble win. So yeah, this year, if it's Stephanie Vaquer, I would so be down for that. But like I said, I don't know. The next person that I have on this list that I think has a good chance to win this year's Women's Royal Rumble is Roxanne Perez. As of the making of this video, Roxanne, she's involved in the Judgment Day stuff. She's like in the tag division, obviously with Raquel Rodriguez. So it doesn't really make any sense for her to win the Royal Rumble right now. But the Royal Rumble is months away. So a lot of things can change. And I totally wouldn't mind if Roxanne won. You have to remember, she was the final 2 in this year's Royal Rumble. obviously coming up short to Charlotte Flair. She was the Iron Woman of the match. So clearly, WWE, they see a lot in her, and maybe that's a teaser, for something that could happen in, maybe this year's Royal Rumble, maybe next year's. I'm not too sure, but I would so love this because I think there is a couple of options they could do if Roxanne did win this year's Royal Rumble. Now, obviously, they would have to kind of maybe remove her from Judgment Day, or maybe she would still be in Judgment Day, depending on when Liv returns. But I would like to see like a Roxanne versus Tiffany at WrestleMania for the title. That would be awesome. I think that storyline could be well done, especially since, with their history in NXT, both being super young superstars. Like, I would love to see them face off at WrestleMania. Totally wouldn't mind if Roxanne won that match, by the way. But obviously, like I said, I don't know if Tiffany's gonna, carry the title all the way to WrestleMania. The current women's champion, Naomi, on Raw, I wouldn't see a world where they do Naomi versus Roxanne, obviously. Really a lot on Monday Night Raw. Like, if Bianca's the champion, I don't really see them doing Bianca versus Roxanne. I just feel like, Bianca, Jade, Naomi, whatever version of that they want to do, I feel like that's going to be with the Women's World Championship. So I would really think if Roxanne won the Royal Rumble, she would go after the WWE Women's Champion. And I think that would, in my opinion, still be Tiffany Stratton. I think Roxanne has a very, less chance of winning the Rumble when it comes to a Jade Cargill or a Stephanie Vaquer. But it's still an option that I would really like for WWE to explore. And finally, that brings me to the woman that I think will win this year's Women's Royal Rumble, and that is Liv Morgan. Obviously, we know that Liv Morgan has been out with an injury for a month or so now. Missing Evolution, missing SummerSlam in her hometown. Very brutal because she was involved in like 3 storylines. So her getting hurt just at that time really did suck because of all the stuff with Judgment Day. She was just about to feud with Io Sky for the Women's World Championship. She had a Nikki Bella feud awaiting. So it does suck that Liv got hurt. But you have to think about, when she comes back, what is she going to do? Because she's not going to come back and feud with Nikki Bella. She's not going to come back and feud with Io Sky, who's not the champion anymore. She's going to come back and she is going to be involved in that Judgment Day drama. So there is a chance that, we get like a Liv versus Roxanne at WrestleMania or something like that. But I would much rather her take care of that business at some point, but also just win the Royal Rumble so she gets a guaranteed world title shot at WrestleMania. And the match that I want is Liv Morgan versus Tiffany Stratton. That, in my opinion, is one of the best matches they could put on for the WWE Women's Championship. Like, we've seen a lot with Tiffany Stratton. A lot of her matches and feuds haven't been too good. I think that could be her absolute best feud. Like, the work that Liv does on the mic. Liv's a great in-ring performer, a great storyteller. This could be a really awesome feud. I wouldn't even care who was the babyface or who was the heel in this scenario, because this feud and this match would absolutely deliver. And I would like to see Liv, win the title at WrestleMania. Like, that would be such an awesome moment, because her getting hurt, it took a lot away from her, like I said. So her coming back, winning the Royal Rumble, which is something she's never done. She's always been a runner-up in these Royal Rumbles and Elimination Chambers. So if she was to come back, get that huge pop in Saudi, hopefully, right, and then win the Royal Rumble, I just feel like that would be so awesome. It would make up for her missing that time with an injury, and then going on WrestleMania, like I said, and winning a championship. I know she's a Monday Night Raw superstar, but when I look at the Women's World Championship, I obviously don't know if I see a Liv Morgan versus Naomi at WrestleMania. I wouldn't hate that if Liv went back to being a babyface, but I'm not sure I want her to exactly be a babyface. I know she's going to be very over when she comes back because, when superstars are out for a long period of time and they come back, they're going to get, massive cheers. So, but like I said, Liv versus Naomi, that's an option. If it's like a Liv versus Bianca, maybe. But like I said, I just don't see that. I think Bianca is going to be involved with Jade and Naomi come WrestleMania. So yeah, Liv versus Tiffany, in my opinion, that's the match they should do. And obviously they could do something where Liv wins the Elimination Chamber. Yeah, but Liv returning at the Rumble and then winning it, tell me that wouldn't be crazy. So yeah, this is who I want to win the Royal Rumble. Book it. Liv Morgan will win this year's Royal Rumble. Okay, now let's move over to the men's Royal Rumble, where I have a lot more than 4 contestants. I think that the women's, I think 4 is fair. I don't really see anybody else winning. For the men, I think there's a lot of options this year, so bear with me. Let's start it off with CM Punk, the best in the world. Obviously, he's came up short in the last 2 Royal Rumbles where a lot of people thought he was going to win. He was the fan favorite last year and the year before that, and he obviously came up short. He didn't win either of those Royal Rumbles. I think this year has a possibility of happening. I do want to see him be the one who dethrones Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship because, he lost the title at SummerSlam in just 5 minutes. He needs to win that title back, man. If he doesn't win it back, that's going to suck. I need to see him be the one to take it from Seth Rollins. Now, obviously, him, in my opinion, him winning the Royal Rumble and facing Seth at WrestleMania, I don't really love the idea of that because I think this year it should be Seth versus Roman at WrestleMania, whether the title's on the line or not. But, Punk versus Seth at WrestleMania, we've seen the match so many times. The feud, it's been great, but I just feel like it has to end. So what I want to happen is I want Punk to beat Rollins for that title like sometime before WrestleMania, so that can lead into Seth versus Roman without the title, and then Punk can maybe go into Mania defending the title. That's what I do hope happens. But there is also a world where I do see CM Punk winning this year's Royal Rumble and going on to face Cody Rhodes in the main event of WrestleMania. We know that they've teased CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes leading up to 2 WrestleManias at this point. I think it's bound to happen at some point, and this match is obviously a WrestleMania main event. I would love to see this. Whether they did Cody Randy or Cody Punk, I would be absolutely fine with this. But CM Punk winning the Rumble and going on a feud with Cody, I think that could be so generational, especially if he won the WWE Championship from Cody. But I just don't know if I see that happening because I just feel like CM Punk has to win the world title back from Seth Rollins. I don't think CM Punk's just going to forget about Rollins and forget about the World Heavyweight Championship that he only held for 5 minutes and just go on to challenge Cody for the title. I just don't really know if I see that happening. But if they did do Roman Reigns versus Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, I could see this being a possibility. And don't get me wrong, I would really like this. But at the end of the day, I just don't know if I see that happening. The next guy that I think has a good shot at winning this year's Royal Rumble is Roman Reigns. Does Roman Reigns need to win the Royal Rumble? Absolutely not. He does not need to win the Royal Rumble. Obviously, the only way I really see this happening is if Seth Rollins is still the World Heavyweight Champion and WWE has him hold the title all the way till WrestleMania. Then I really do see a world where Roman Reigns goes through 29 other men, wins the Royal Rumble, and then goes on to face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania and beats Rollins for that title. Do I love that? No. Because like I said, Roman, he doesn't need to win the Royal Rumble. And in my opinion, the Roman versus Rollins WrestleMania match doesn't need the World Heavyweight Championship. Because I don't think Roman should have another title reign. And, obviously he's talked bad about the title before. I really don't like this. Like, I want Punk to be the one to take the title from Rollins. So, yeah, I wouldn't really prefer this, but I could see a world where it does happen because, like I said, I think it's definitely got to be Roman versus Rollins at WrestleMania. And if Seth is still the champion going into WrestleMania, then it makes sense. Okay, the next guy I have on this list, it's probably a long shot of happening, but I still think it would be kind of cool. And I'm talking about Bron Breakker being the one to win this year's Royal Rumble. Imagine a world where Bron Breakker won the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia and went on to face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania for that title. Now, like I said, I want Seth versus Roman, so I wouldn't prefer this match over that. But if they don't do Seth versus Roman, this, in my opinion, this could cook. Like, imagine Bron Breakker winning the Rumble and then turning on Seth Rollins, whether Seth is the heel in that situation or if it's Bron and one of them goes face. Imagine Bron versus Seth at WrestleMania and we have Bron Breakker, take the World Heavyweight Championship from Seth Rollins. I think that's a cool route they could go in because Bron Breakker is so young. I would like to see a young guy win the Royal Rumble. But at the same time, like I said, right now, not really the time. I do hope that they do Rollins versus Breakker at some point in the future because I do expect this faction to break up probably after WrestleMania. I think it will, go to WrestleMania. But if they decided to end this faction early, which, like I said, I don't think that they should, Bron Breakker winning the Royal Rumble would be a crazy plot twist. The next person I have on this list to win the Royal Rumble is Randy Orton. Now, I think I speak for all of us when I say Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes is a WrestleMania main event for the WWE Championship. I think that they have to do that at WrestleMania. With a heel Randy Orton going against a babyface Cody Rhodes. If they don't pull the trigger on this, I'm going to be really mad. They've been teasing this feud for so long. It has to happen in this second title reign from Cody Rhodes. I know Cody's feuding with Drew right now, but Randy winning the Rumble, like I said with Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, he doesn't need to win the Royal Rumble whatsoever. Obviously. But, him winning it, and then, obviously, kind of like a John Cena, Cody Rhodes situation, where maybe Randy's still a face when he wins the Rumble, and then, him and Cody have a segment, and then Randy goes heel, and then that long build to WrestleMania, we have the heel Randy Orton versus babyface Cody. Just all the history there. We have to get this match. I could see a world where they do this before WrestleMania, maybe Survivor Series, Royal Rumble. They obviously could do stuff like that. But in my opinion, this has to main event WrestleMania 42. I want to see this so bad. But I would prefer, for Randy Orton to win the Elimination Chamber so we can have somebody else win the Royal Rumble. The next person that I could see winning this year's Royal Rumble is LA Knight. Now, obviously, we know LA Knight super over with the crowd. He's been super over with the crowd for the last couple of years. And, they've struggled to put him in the main event scene, coming up short to win the Money in the Bank briefcase, right? Kind of being stuck on the Bloodline Vortex with the U.S. title, Shinsuke Nakamura. Now that we're finally out of that and we're seeing LA Knight, feud with guys like Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Jey Uso, I think that this is kind of a possibility now. Obviously last year didn't look possible at all. I think this is the first year we can really look at it and say, okay, LA Knight has a good shot at winning this year's Rumble. Do I want him to win the Royal Rumble over some guys? No, because that means, it's probably going to end up being him versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, which once again takes us away from Rollins versus Reigns, which it disrupts a lot of things. It could be a world where it's somebody else and it's not Seth Rollins who's the World Heavyweight Champion, like maybe they do just CM Punk versus LA Knight at WrestleMania. I wouldn't hate that, but I feel like that there is better things you could do with Punk at Mania. Like, they could do a storyline where LA Knight continues to fall short of winning his first world championship and then, maybe wins the Royal Rumble. He would get a huge pop, by the way, in Saudi if he won that Rumble and then goes on to perhaps win the title at WrestleMania. This isn't one that I prefer, but it's one that I think has a somewhat shot of happening. The next person that I have on this list that I could see winning the Royal Rumble, but I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's definitely not going to happen, and it's Kevin Owens. Obviously, we know Kevin Owens, he got injured, he hurt his neck, he just had surgery. There's really not really a timeline for his injury. People are saying that it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. He could be out for the rest of his career, which I really hope that that's not the case. But yeah, Kevin Owens, he's the biggest wild card in my opinion. But could you just imagine a world where he had a speedy, miraculous recovery from this neck injury, and he went on to return at the Royal Rumble, get a huge pop and ovation, and go on to win it? Like, tell me that wouldn't be crazy. Like, in my opinion, the dream match for me at WrestleMania, if it was possible, would be CM Punk going in as World Heavyweight Champion and going against Kevin Owens for that title. Because I want to see that feud so damn bad. With Kevin's injury, like, we might never get it. Obviously with Punk also being up in age where he might retire in the next, 2 to 4 years. So I'm not sure if we're ever going to see that match. But, this would absolutely cook. And Kevin Owens, he's never won a Royal Rumble as well. I love to see guys win the Royal Rumble when they've never won it in their careers. So, man, this is a dream. A man can dream. I know it's not going to happen, so don't comment anything. But, man, this would be awesome. That brings me to the final person on this list, the guy that I unfortunately think will win this year's Royal Rumble, and that is Sami Zayn. I am just not a big Sami Zayn guy. Like you could tell by the tone of my voice, I don't love the whole underdog story that gets repeated time after time. I want him to have a different character. He needs a character change, in my opinion. But, with him beating Karrion Kross at SummerSlam, I think that's the nail in the coffin. Like, I think we're not going to get a character change from Sami Zayn for at least, another year. I think that he is going to win that world championship as this whole underdog, right? And I think it will happen at WrestleMania for a couple reasons. I just think that he's going to win because they've been teasing this for a while now, and Sami Zayn, as of right now, is still, asking Adam Pearce, what's with the world title? Can I get a world title match? This, that. It's bound to happen at some point. If whether you want it or not, you just have to, expect it to happen. It's going to happen. I just think it's going to happen at WrestleMania because the other reason is it's in Saudi Arabia. He is going to get a huge pop in Saudi, right? He gets that pop every time that they go over there. And I just think him winning the Rumble in Saudi, that's going to be a special moment. Don't get me wrong. Him winning in front of that crowd, this would also be his first Royal Rumble win. But, I don't love the matches and the storylines from Sami Zayn, as this, whole underdog. I don't like him. And especially if it's Seth Rollins versus Sami Zayn at WrestleMania, that once again takes us away from Rollins versus Reigns, and I would be heated about that, and I just wouldn't love Sami beating Seth Rollins, because if he wins the Rumble, let's be honest, he's winning the title at WrestleMania. It's going to be the same thing as Jey Uso winning the World Championship, or winning the Royal Rumble. You knew he was not going to lose to Gunther after he won the Rumble over, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, John Cena. There was not a world where he was going to lose. I see the same thing happening with Sami Zayn, and like I said, I just don't think, a Sami versus Seth storyline could be that great. And then another one is Sami versus CM Punk. Like I said, I think CM Punk should win the world title back from Rollins before WrestleMania, maybe at Royal Rumble or something like that. But Sami versus Punk at WrestleMania, no, I don't like that. I feel like there's so many better feuds and matches and storylines they could do with CM Punk at WrestleMania as the World Heavyweight Champion. CM Punk versus Sami Zayn, I'm sorry, that's not even a main event. That would not main event night 1 or 2. It would be Cody and Orton and then Roman and Seth. If, CM Punk wants to have any shot of, main eventing WrestleMania again, it's got to be with a bigger opponent than Sami Zayn. I'm not trying to be this D1 hater of Sami Zayn. I just don't like the whole underdog thing. And I would not like him, going on to beat CM Punk for that world championship. But unfortunately, this is the one that I see happening the most. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up down below. Don't forget to comment down below what future videos you guys would like to see from me. Also guys, comment down below, who do you think will win this year's women's and men's Royal Rumble matches? Alright guys, peace.